She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies
Give me every little detail.
of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
Good morning, good life. Welcome back to Detail Therapy. In this episode, we're getting into the details about what you're struggling with. I'm going to be taking questions from my Instagram so we can work through the details of what is holding you back. If you're new here, hello, my name is Amy Landino and I will be your host. I'm a success coach and founder of Gatlu House, a resource dedicated to helping you go after the life you want. You can see all of our work, including the show notes for this podcast, by visiting detailtherapy.online. I feel like it's just been a hot minute since I went and took the temperature of all of you lovely folks who listen to this podcast. I hate when people say that. Like, it's literally you right now with your earbuds in, and I'm talking to you like there's all of your best friends around you right now. This is an intimate experience, Amy. Stop talking like it's a speech. Maybe I just miss the speaking circuit. I don't know. I am at my standing desk, quite proud of myself, standing. I'm trying to stand on both of my feet evenly. I went to go have reflexology done recently. One of the few things that I will do every once in a while to venture out of the house is something safe, but also for self-care. And this was so nice. I go see my girl Keisha here in Columbus for reflexology. So if you need a recommendation, let me know. I'll tell you where to go for that. But she was like, you're really favoring one foot. You got to try to even it out a little bit. And it reminded me I should be standing at my standing desk a lot more often. One of the things that I wrote for myself in 2021 is that trying to spend at least half of the day standing, and that means splitting up my work day between sitting and standing. So that's what I'm doing right now. I feel like I have a little bit more energy in my diaphragm, in my chest, in my whatevers. 2 podcasts for you right now. So it's feeling really good. I've also had a lot of coffee. You're welcome. So I'm going to head over to my Instagram. I basically just said to y'all, I said, hey, what are you struggling with right now? And that, is one of my favorite questions to ask because it just can run the gamut. It can just be so wide open and completely what is in your headspace right now. Because even if I only talk about certain things that are within my realm of expertise, I still feel like we have a really open relationship. Not the controversial kind, but the kind where you feel like you can just tell me anything. And I can point back to how it's probably relevant to your morning routine. Or the fact that you're doing too much, or the fact that you need to go take a walk. All the basic things. It's all like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. How can Amy make this about a morning routine? So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go and look. I'm literally just going to completely pull them at random. I literally asked this question a couple minutes ago, and I've already got so many coming in. So hopefully there are some continuing themes, some similar questions. So we're really helping a lot of you out. I'll give a couple of shout outs, but I think this is going to be useful for everyone because I took a quick look and y'all, the struggle is real. We are recovering 2020ers and we're going to do our very best here, right? 2020, the year we're going to be talking about every single year forever. Okay, what are you struggling with? Miss Mulatto79 says, establishing a meaningful morning routine. Well, this is just appropriately timed for the first question that I saw. I recently posted my updated and jam-packed 2021 morning routine on Amy TV. Head over to youtube.com/Amy TV. The reason I mention this is that I go over the 3 main pillars of a spectacular start to the day on your terms. That's movement, mindfulness, and mastery. We talk about it in Good Morning, Good Life, the book. It's in the planner. It's in the whole situation, right? And I also want you to note that in that morning routine, I do a lot of things to fill each of those 3 buckets, and that is my personal choice. I also work for myself. I also do not have children. So before you come for me in the DMs, this is what my morning looks like, and it works for me at this season of my life. Now, it's not meant to make anyone feel like they're not doing enough, but I empower you. If you're looking for meaningful in the morning, fill those 3 buckets, get some movement in, do something to be mindful and present for the day, and then work toward your mastery. I swear, if you even just do one thing for 15 minutes each for each of those buckets, that's 45 minutes. That's a really good amount of time just for you. And I really believe that that is what meaningful looks like. Each of those buckets filled with whatever feels right to you. And I think that that's the most important thing here, is knowing that if you're doing something, let's say you saw in my video that I do morning pages and you've seen me talk about it in the past, I can be a huge proponent of it and it still not be a fit for you. Be okay with doing something. Now remember, it may not actually pay off, the act of morning pages, for a period of time. So you still want to be patient with what you try. But if it just doesn't feel right to you, if it just makes you feel like you have this extra homework or extra task for the day, then just skip it and do something else. Experiment. If you're somebody who doesn't like routine but still wants a morning routine, then do something different every day for your movement, mindfulness, and mastery. That's why we have a list for every month in the planner for different options for each of the 3 buckets, so you can pick whichever you want. I really believe that there's a way to have a morning routine that is meaningful for you. It's about making it what you want it to be and not always looking out at what the rest of the world is doing and assuming you have to do it the same way. I personally love doing the same thing every single day. I try to do mostly the same things every single day. That has a lot to do with less decision making for me because I'm a business owner that makes a lot of decisions. But again, completely up to you. Her signature said, nothing in particular, but I would love to see from vlogging from you. Any plans for that? I think the question was, are you vlogging? And the answer is yes. I didn't mean for 2 really promotional questions so far. We're going to try to jazz it up. youtube.com/Schmatastic. That is my vlogging channel. I am hoping to be picking it up on a weekly basis, but I haven't started vlogging this week, so I don't really know if that's going to be the case. But there's definitely a lot of stuff in there. If you haven't seen my house tour yet, there's a whole lot going on. Thank you for that question. That is not the struggle. The struggle is not seeing my life. All right, let's talk about solace grim. What are you struggling with? Toxic environment and a personal tragedy. Let's start with the tragedy because that's really challenging, right? Like, these are the things that happen that may or may not, but very likely is outside of your control. If it is within your control, we can entertain it in a couple of different ways, but I really doubt that if you had a personal tragedy that it was 100% within your control, but we can entertain that as an option as well. I'm just going to assume that something really awful happened and you feel a lot of guilt about it and you feel really terrible about it, but it actually is not at all something that you had control over. First of all, I just want to acknowledge you for what you're going through, because I can't sit here, even if you told me what that personal tragedy is, even if I've had something really similar happening in my life, I wouldn't know because I don't know what happened. But even if I did, it doesn't make you feel any better to have somebody saying, oh my gosh, I know, oh my gosh, this, just sit in it. It happened. And there's a reason that it did happen. And it's because we're living this thing called life. And whether or not it was just the worst year ever, or it was the best year ever for what seems like everyone else and not you, it could always be one or the other. We decide what we decide when we decide it. You can decide to give it a label and say it was the worst year ever or not. Who cares otherwise? Because even if it was the best, something awful happened. If you don't just absorb that, sit in it, and be okay with feeling what you feel about it, it's really easy for you to just start pushing things down and moving it to the side, trying to figure out your morning routine, which I do think can help for mental stability, but it's certainly not going to help completely with just understanding and wrapping your mind around this moment that has happened. So I hope that I can offer you some permission in that, and I do want to acknowledge you for that. Now, if something tragic has happened and you're also dealing with a toxic environment, I want you to look at it both ways. First of all, I do not approve of anybody being toxic around you. Like that's not helping anybody, okay? And if someone feels like they have the right to because they're going through the same thing that happened in your personal tragedy, or they just don't care how you're feeling about your own personal tragedy and they're just going to do whatever they want and take out their negative emotions on you, that ain't right. But again, you can't control that. And so the flip side of this I want you to entertain is how can we take the word toxic out of it? Because what we know for sure is that this may be an environment you are kind of stuck with, okay? Let's just say you're stuck with it. I would like to think you're not, but let's say you are. Totally stuck with this environment. Let's not label it. Let's just say this is what it is. There are elements of it that I can control. There are elements of it that I cannot. And so when we start to just stop labeling things, especially it's like the worst environment ever, the most toxic environment ever, we can at least step back and say, that is something that I am making worse about this environment, me labeling it. And so now I'm going to remove that label and I'm going to say, let's say I didn't have this feeling about it. What would it be then? What's top of mind for me right now actually is, now that I'm talking through this advice, I read something this morning in the Daily Stoic about like, what if you didn't have an opinion? And the comparison that they made, they being Ryan and his co-author in this book, was, what if you thought about all the things that have happened that are negative about you, but you actually never witnessed them? So for instance, somebody's talking crap about you behind your back. How would you know? Let's say you have no clue, right? Do you have an opinion on it? No, because it didn't happen, because you didn't hear it. The tree fell in the woods. You never heard it, right? So there's no opinion to be had. So what were to happen if maybe you did hear it, or maybe it is happening right in front of your face, and we just took opinion out of it? There's something really interesting about opinion. It comes in handy in certain situations, like in this podcast. I have an opinion. I'd like to share it with you. Maybe it'll be helpful to you. And then there's a lot of the time when opinions just are annoying, right? Somebody's offering their opinion to you and you never asked for it. Or you've got an opinion which is making a crappy situation entirely impossible and worse. We have to control what we can control. If we have really terrible energy around us in our household and it's our family and it's like, what do I do with that? They're my family. What am I supposed to do? Not be family with them anymore? Well, good luck with that. People do that, but I don't, you can decide, oh, no, I labeled it appropriately, but I'm going to remove the label because now that's empowering me to take the steps I need to take, right? So that could be the case. But if your toxic environment is at work, is that within your control? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe because, wow, do you want to go somewhere where you are in a toxic environment 5 days a week, 40 plus hours a week? Do you want to go there? Do you look forward to going there? If that's the toxic environment, how do we take control? We move on. We move to another place. We go to our superior and let them know, hey, I just want you to know that I am looking for another job because I don't feel that the environment here is conducive to how I want to live my life. That's a challenging conversation to have. I probably wouldn't actually do that unless it was like the day I'm putting in my notice, because you know what? It offers somebody the chance to rebut that and say, no, we want to keep you. Or what if you thought that in your head and you thought, if I went to my boss and told them how terrible it is and they believed me to the ends of the earth, then maybe they would want to try to make a change. And so how can we then do an in-between step? The challenge here, I'm giving you so many different scenarios because anything could be happening in your life right now. Anyone listening that's like, I'm in a toxic environment right now. Okay, great. How do we change that? A significant change would be to leave and to cut those people off and to cut off all existence of that in your life. Yes, but what's in between? Can we see a little bit of give? Can we see where people are willing to work with us? Can we see that we actually have no flippin' clue what anyone else is going through? Even if somebody is the worst of the worst Karen in the history of the world, what's happening with her? Have you taken a moment to say, wow, if she talks to me like that, I wonder what's happening in her mind, in her head. The number of people who are just like who asked this question or who isn't asking questions and is just sitting with all of this animosity in their head and not knowing what exactly to do with it or how to work through it. This is what is causing so much mental instability between all of us. We've all got a little bit. I'm not talking about like, oh, you're diagnosed mentally ill. Honey, we're all mentally ill. We have been sitting at home for a year. Or we've been risking our lives to pay the bills. There's some mental things that's going to go on with that, right? How do we remove the label? How do we find the in-between? How do we show that we were able to go into something completely objectively so that then we can prove to ourselves that we did whatever was within our own power to make a positive out of a negative? Because a positive is only a positive because you said so, and a negative is only a negative because you said so. Arguable, I know. And you've probably got so many examples right now, don't you? I hear you listing them off while you're commuting in your car of all of the things that are, believe me, Amy, everyone agrees that this is a negative. Oh, does everyone agree? Can I tell you what argument is the worst argument in the world? I just want you to know this, and everyone thinks it. When someone says that to me, I'm just like, listen, honey, I already went through high school and got through it as quickly as humanly possible. So that argument does not work for me, and it doesn't work on me because it just means that for whatever reason, you need to fabricate an army in order to make your point. So, cool, but what do you think? What legs can you stand on? That's my reminder to stand on both my 2 feet right now because I was leaning. What do you think? Actually, here's a good example. I know I'm going on tangents. I'm going to take another question. I thought the Super Bowl halftime show was fine. I didn't really think it was bad. I didn't think it was spectacular. I just thought, yeah, that was a Super Bowl halftime show. Look at that. And the next day, my favorite Peloton spin instructor thought it was terrible. My husband thought it was terrible. Everyone around me is like, the weekend really just under-delivered. How so? He showed up, right? He did the job, right? He spent millions of dollars to create a one-of-a-kind experience. Okay. To me, I'm good with that. I don't need to label it as terrible or underwhelming or not. I don't know. It's just like, I think when you start looking at things and saying, why do I need to have an opinion on that? How is this advancing my life? Because if it's not, save that space for something else. Like, I couldn't have done that halftime show. I'll tell you that right now. Anyway, I just hope all those people were tested because it looks like he employed a lot of people on that halftime show. I was actually like, wow, go you, weekend, go you. Look at all these people working, dancing, wearing masks. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Shout out to you, love. Maybe I shouldn't give your... Actually, I think we should bleep out your username for this one because it might get a little bit too close to home. The question is managing employees who don't respect you. Okay, my darling, I completely understand this, and I think this is the most important thing. So you may be the owner or you may be a manager. Either way, I want you to think about that position and how valid and amazing that it probably is for you in and of itself, right? That this is your thing that you do to the best of your ability every day. Go you. I acknowledge you for that, right? In the place of a business owner, this is really important because for me, there's a balancing act. I have to be the one that leads the team. And there needs to be drive toward that mission. Like that's one of our core values that we really explain to the team, is that you do not have to be passionate about our mission, but you should be driven by the goals and the overall mission of why we do what we do, so that you can show up for your job to the greatest of your abilities. Because that is what you have pitched me on in order to be able to work here. But what you do not need to do, and I'll say again, is you don't have to be passionate, because guess what? It's my company, not yours. So I'm going to give you the respect in so many different ways, logistically, mindset, whatever, to be able to say, you just need to show up for what you've promised. And it's my job to be obsessed with this company. It is never the job of your employees to love your baby as much as you do, because that would be weird. Let's be honest. Their baby is their life. They want to be able to go after the life they want. They probably think your job is a way for them to make that happen. And so the respect, it has a lot to do with that balance, in my opinion. Do you practice what you preach? Do you show them the respect that they don't have to be working until midnight because it's not their business? Do you show them that you care about the moments that are happening in their life in addition to the value that they bring to their position? That's where I think a lot of the respect is. And you know what? Guess what? You're still going to have people who don't respect you, or at least if it's not about respect, it's about just not being a fit, which is why I got to go back to core values. How are you explaining to your team the different characteristics that they need to have in order to do their job effectively? Because they should have been hired on those basics, and they will be fired for those basics. And our core values are very much written in terms of who they are as humans and as the ability to operate and do their job. They do not need to be super duper experts on anything. They just need to want to learn and to get better. They need to be resourceful. They need to care about the mission enough that they don't think their job is stupid. They need to see that they change lives. No matter what the mission of your company is, how are they changing lives? How can you remind them of that? I have to remind my team, guys, you're doing a great job. Let's not stress ourselves out to the ends of the earth, because no, it is not brain surgery. However, we need to show up because we help people go after the lives they want. They need an accountability partner on that. And so therefore, we will be on time. Where is the balance? I believe that continuing to communicate what those values are and what the vision is, why we're continuing to churn every single day, why we're on the hamster wheel, it comes from that leadership helping them to understand, helping them to be reminded of what those things are. So if you are losing respect and it's not because you're doing things that are inappropriate, then I think it has more to do with how you are empowering. SSS Luke said, getting myself going on projects and ideas, even though I know they're good for me. So she's struggling with this idea of starting something, even knowing how vitally important it is. And don't we all? I mean, there's always all these things going on a daily basis. We have priorities on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on an annual basis. And then before you know it, some of these things fall to the wayside because of all of the daily grind that also has to happen. My advice is this: if you know it, that may not be enough. How do you best hold yourself accountable? Do you need somebody reminding you? Do you need a little bit of hand-holding? It is okay if that's the case. Better for you to admit it to yourself than for you to not and think that you need to be a type A upholder type, in your everyday life when that's absolutely not the case. What can you do to help yourself show up? And all you have to do is take a step. The one thing that I always do when I'm like, I just don't freaking wanna, right? Like, I just don't wanna do this right now, even though today's the day. For instance, I love getting on this microphone and talking to you, But sometimes I got to get my laptop out. I got to open Adobe. I got to plug in my microphone. I got to sit down and look at my outline. I have to go and look at these questions. What if I don't answer them very well? It is actually a lot of like I'm revving the car up, right? That was the worst impression of all time. And I have to rev that car up. But here's what I do. I just say, it's typically a lot of fun by the time I've gotten started, right? I've got to get started. I'm going to promise myself to at least get the laptop set up and set up the mic. And so I'll do that. And then I'll go get a cup of coffee and I'll say, okay, I only have so much time in this calendar block. So I've really all right, I'm going to do 5 minutes. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to do 5 minutes. And the first 2 minutes is me talking to my audio producer. Hi, Andrew. Andrew listens to everything for the podcast. He edits everything. And so my easiest way of giving him instructions, fun podcasting pro tip, is to talk to him at the beginning of the audio. So I don't have to type anything or put it someplace else. He's got to listen to the episode anyway. So I'm talking, here's what's happening today. And I'm also kind of testing my audio when I do that. So I go back and listen to it. And I'm like, okay, well, I think I'm good. All right. Well, let me just start the podcast because you know what? I know how I start my podcast every single time. So that's pretty easy. It's about taking the incremental steps. It's about revving up the engine. It's about warming up the car. It's about getting it going so that you get to a point where you're like, wow, I've answered a few questions now. We're chugging along here. I think we're almost done because if I make this too long, they might not enjoy the podcast and listen in the first place. So I got to keep my timestamp in mind. And before you know it, that 30, 35, 40 minutes that I was dreading is done. And then it's just so exciting because I'm like, wow, this podcast goes out in 2 weeks. I'm 2 weeks ahead of schedule right now. This is amazing. And then I don't want to lose that. So then next week I sit down and I do it all over again because I love that I'm ahead. I'm not down to the wire. I'm not making my team crazy because I'm dropping the ball on deadlines, and we keep the machine going. My advice is take it 5 minutes at a time. Block that time on your calendar. So hopefully you've given yourself more than that so you can finish whatever it is you have to do. But even if it's something big that's going to help you, but it's not something you can really finish, it's just meant to long-term kind of help you grow in whatever way that you are doing that, just give yourself time. Morning routine, give yourself that mastery time. And yes, the getting started is the hardest part. Make yourself do it for 5 minutes. See where you end up. Holly Ann said, working from home while quarantining and keeping a good mindset. It's a daily struggle. It absolutely is. It is 100% a daily struggle. Some of us have the wonderful ability of staying safe and working from home. A lot of us don't have that ability. Regardless, don't label it. Somebody's experience is their experience. And I can tell you right now, the work from home grind is getting a little boring in my opinion. But here's what I would advise. I just did a killer and quick class with Creative Live working from home, how to master it. And not just that, but have your work-life balance still in play. And a lot of it has to do with communication because we are not communicating our needs to the people who can help us. And that is what encourages a great mindset. Also, making sure we still do a morning routine, even though we don't have a normal commute to work anymore. A lot of us have dropped the ball on that. So I highly recommend you check out that class. But if I had to give you one big tip, I would have you sit down and say, what is the hardest part of working from home? Write it down. And I can almost assure you that when you look, you're going to see a name. That name could be somebody you live with. That name could be somebody you work with, whether remotely or not. That name could be you. You need to talk to whoever it is that you wrote down, because I'm fairly certain everybody's pretty much writing down a name. Because even if they've got their calendar blocks and they've got their task management and they've got this and they've got that, there's the speed bumps throughout the day. And those speed bumps typically come from other humans who are disrupting us. That other human could be inside your brain. We need to have a conversation, and it can be challenging because when you have that conversation with yourself, you're usually a total beast and horrible. And you try to imagine having that conversation with somebody else and you never would. So that's something we need to address. And then second, if you know you need to talk to somebody else and it's hard and you can't come up with the words because you don't want to be mean and you need to be nice and you know that they're trying to keep their mental health at home feeling good as well, how can we do that? I talk about strategies about that in the class, but I think that's the biggest thing we need to come to terms with here. Home is home for many people. So when you're suddenly sitting down and trying to get your amazing productive work life in check when you're sitting in your house, it is hard. That separation is a challenge. Respect it, acknowledge it, remove the labels from it, and make it a math problem. Not that I like math, just it's simple. The numbers are the numbers. Here are the challenges. Here are the easy parts. How can I have more easy parts? When should I do the easy parts so that there's more of them? And so on. It's about working out these issues, not keeping them in your head. Because no matter who you wrote down, you're probably working through this problem in a stressed out, screaming capacity very quietly inside your head. And you are doing nobody any favors when you do that in the long run. Caroline Raffert said, going to sleep early as I would like to set up my morning for success. So you're already way ahead of the game if you respect the fact that you need to start your morning the night before. Let me tell you a little story. I am currently number 1 in my Bachelor bracket league. I have other opinions about the Bachelor. We can talk about that another time. I've never been a big Bachelor fan, but because of the fantasy Bachelor bracket, I'm all in. Like, I love that. I love that. I'm number 1. But here's the thing. I can't stay up to watch it because it starts at 8 o'clock. And it's a 2-hour show. I'm supposed to be asleep by 9 or 9:30 if I'm going to wake up at 4:30. That's just a fact. I'm going to be a really terrible person in the long run if I do not get my sleep. I'm going to be sick at some point. It's just not going to be good. I'm not going to be taking care of anybody. I'm certainly not taking care of myself. So I can't watch. I can wake up the next morning, go through my morning routine, and then check to see how my bracket did the night before, and then maybe watch it again so I can work on my bracket for the next week. Yes, that's what I'll do later today. I'm going to watch that replay. Why did they give us replay ability? Because we don't have to watch it live. Who watches live TV anymore? Why did I get into a show that's live? Again, a topic for another day. I need to sleep. So really, really pro tip here, use the alarms on your phone. I'm not talking about the one that wakes you up in the morning. I'm talking about the ones that work all day and all night long. So when you need to remind yourself of things like, hey, it's 8 o'clock. You should be tidying the kitchen, making your celery juice, washing your face, and getting ready to read in bed right about now. So that by 8:30, 8:45, that has hopefully come through. I said hopefully too many times, but you see my point. I'm trying to make that happen. A lot of the time, the days are short and they are long, all at the same time. So we're trying to make it happen, but we need to be reminded because it's like, it's only 3 o'clock. And then all of a sudden it's 9 o'clock. Like, wait, what just happened? I don't understand. Let your phone do something way more useful for you than simply remind you that people are still living their best life in a pandemic and remind you of what you need to do you. It may not work. You may need an accountability partner. All of the above. Do everything until it works. What's special is when you get tired at 8 o'clock and you're like, oh, thank goodness it's 8 o'clock. I can go to bed now. I might be showing my age a little bit, but I don't care. I sleep like a champion. I'm proud of it. And I love that my body is getting on the right timeline without all the alarms. It's spectacular. So that's my advice. You've got to reverse engineer your bedtime based on how much sleep you want, based on what time you wake up in the morning. It's why we put the timeline map in the Good Morning Good Life planner. It is so important that you do that. And guess what? You only have to do it a few nights a week, like 5, Sunday through Thursday. And then Friday and Saturday, you can do anything you want. You can stay up, you can watch Game of Thrones like 4 times if you want. I don't like to. I mostly have my eyes shut for the whole show. I don't know why I'm watching that one either, if I'm being honest. But anyway, just my husband's been trying to get me to watch it for years, so here we are. Shaf, I don't know how to say your full username, said energy levels. I think sleep is a very, very strong indication of where your energy level could or should be. That's one thing. The other thing is, what are you eating? What are you doing to fuel your body to have more energy? What vitamins do you take? I'm not a doctor. You need to speak with your doctor based on taking different things that are going to make you have more energy, and you need to read up and do your own little research. But I can tell you right now that is one of the things I'm obsessed with reading about, is how I can better take care of my body. And yes, I still love a good glass of Prosecco, but I'm going to restrict that to like one on a weekend and only maybe have a little bit of red wine throughout the week because it's good for my heart. You know what I mean? But not too much. So what are you doing to fuel your body? This is why I'm having celery juice every single morning. I told you about this recently. I'm obsessed. It's not like it tastes that great, but it's not the worst. It just tastes like celery, like big deal. And I have it every morning, and it has really, really given me the right palate to go into the rest of the day, so I'm not eating crap. Plus, I don't keep crap in the house anyway, so even if I'm having a weak moment, I move on. But having those things that help you set the stage for how you want to be healthy today is so, so important. And our energy comes from the energy we put in it. What energy are you putting in your mind? What energy are you putting in your gut? What energy are you putting in your space? That's the energy you're probably going to feel. And I'm going to take one more question because my husband's phone calls are now escalating in volume upstairs. I don't think you can hear him, but I can hear him pretty well. I want to take this question from Tilly Wonka. Tilly, my darling, risk-taking and the fear of success, i.e. spinning out of control. So I really appreciate this question because it speaks to how much that you've been overthinking and need to bring in the right energy to your life, just like we talked about with bringing the right energy around you. And you're worried a little bit about things that are going on, probably things that aren't going on and could happen but haven't, and we're wondering how likely they are to happen. But I want to point to something that I just wrote down recently from the book I read, Tools of Titans. This is the second time I've read this book. It's by Tim Ferriss. I really highly recommend this one on audio if you're going to pick it up because there's just so many different cool elements in it. But it's a huge book, and it's really cool if you want to keep it as like a resource manual as well. But one of the things Tim talks about is his definition for risk. And so I think it's an excellent definition and really helps you already start to work through the issue that you're having in your mind with risk just by hearing it. And here's what he says. Tim Ferriss's definition of risk is the likelihood of an irreversible negative outcome. Think about that for a second. What is the likelihood in this situation that you are in right now, Tilly, of an irreversible negative outcome? We like to talk about risk in the sense that we feel like we are well-balanced humans that understand that there are things that we could do in our life that introduce risk, right? And we talk about that because we feel we're doing ourselves a service by saying, I'm not just going to dive headfirst into a situation that I'm not 100% clear on. That is wonderful. But that may not always mean you're taking a risk. Is what you're planning to dive into an irreversible negative outcome? Now, if the negative outcome is my mom will think I'm an idiot or my family will not approve of me, is it irreversible? Maybe it is for you. You've got to look at it that way, right? There were so many things that my family did not understand about what I was doing, that my friends did not understand what I was doing. We're talking about 10 years ago. That sounds like a long time ago. I remember it well. There's so many perspectives out there. Everybody thinks they know the right thing for you because they think they know you so well. And meanwhile, we're barely telling anyone anything real about ourselves, and they supposedly know us so freaking well. Listen, you may not like me for a little while, and you may think I'm crazy, and you may be worried about me, and you may want to tell me what to do all the time. Two things. First of all, let me do my thing. I'm going to try it, and I'll get back to you if I am not successful, and I'll let you know where we go from there. And two, mind your business. Mind your business. Please? Mind your business. Anytime somebody's all up in my business trying to fix me, I have to say, okay, interesting that they came for me that way today. Wow. If they think I'm all over the place right now, they must also be all over the place right now. Do you know why? Because if they weren't, they would be so focused on what they've got in their world that they would not care. Mind your business. If you're getting fired up about somebody else, mind your business. If you think somebody did not do a good job at the halftime show, mind your business. What are you procrastinating on? What are you putting off? What are you calling risk? That is just an excuse for the fact that you want to stay even keel. You come to me and you say, oh, you really messed up that YouTube video. You really messed up that podcast. You really aren't showing up for the Get Loose Society to the best of your capabilities. You really didn't. Okay. I will take that into consideration, feedback of one, and mind your business. Stop labeling things because it indicates you're not minding your business. If, Tilly, what you're thinking about is I'm going to spin out of control because I'm going to take a jump, I'm going to leap, it's going to be irreversible, the potential could be huge upside, but the potential could be huge negative side. But I'm already preparing myself for huge upside and likely not being okay with it. Are you doing what's right for you? You're already saying it's a risk, and the positive side of that risk is scary. Is it right for you? Can you handle it? Two different things. Is it right for you is a really important conversation to have. You've got your ladder, you've leaned it up against a building. You think the top of that building is going to be dope, but you don't know until you get up there. So you start to climb. You may find out halfway or less, you know what? This ain't the right building. I screwed up. I took a wrong turn. That's okay. Get off the dang ladder. You only have one freaking life. Move the ladder to the right building. Cool, great, climb, get to the top. Go, thank goodness for that other building that I learned X, Y, and Z so I could get to here right now. But if you do not know, that does not mean that you can't handle it. You have to take every single step to figure out and to grow and to learn and to gain experience to be able to handle it. This is why I love to say, we all want those results like now, right? But what if they did come right now? Would you have learned enough? Would you be able to stretch yourself to the greatest of your capabilities to deliver the way that amazing, huge goal right now would happen? How can you continue to prepare so that you can climb your way there? Do not be afraid of risk. Know what a real risk is. And then decide, am I just procrastinating? Or is the irreversible nature of that, because I think we can all think of a few irreversible negative outcomes that come from risks, different types of risks. Lots of them are super negative, right? You have to decide, oh, you know what? That's not for me. I'm not going to do that. It might shorten my life, or it might completely tear apart my marriage, or it might destroy my kids and the childhood that they have. Those are all very valid feelings, but only if it's a real risk. Not just because you thought you were doing yourself a service by using the word risk when you're procrastinating. Thank you so much for sharing your questions with me today. Thank you for being open to talking to me about all of these things. And I turned it into a morning routine thing probably like at least 3 times, right? So at least we know that I made good on that promise. If you would like to share another question with me, potential podcasts in the future, make sure you follow on Instagram at Schmitastic. And thank you to everyone who has left a 5-star review of the podcast. I see so many of you jumping in there now. It's so cool. I love reading your thoughts on this. We have just changed this content so much. It's just really exciting to see what you're thinking of it. Today's shout out goes to Hannah Wim. Hannah Wim, you are a lucky ducky winner today. You've got the Good Morning Good Life Planner coming your way. Hit us up, hello@detailspodcast.com to get that thing shipped out to you. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Remember, subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life you want. See you back here next week. Cheers.